Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Barr, and I'm a history professor at Lone Star College-Kingwood. And welcome to our event this wonderful Friday afternoon. The sun is shining on my deck, and I'm looking out the window. It looks really great out, and we're going to get to talk about poetry today and do a little bit of a workshop on that. So I'd like to share my screen for just a bit as we introduce our poet for today, our author for today. This is our Curious Minds series, formerly Writers, Speakers, and Ideas. For this semester at least, the talks are virtual, but that doesn't mean they're any less informative. And today we have on hand, I know her as Taylor Anderson, but she goes by T.C. Anderson in her published works, and so we'll come back to that in a bit. Today we have her on hand. Next week we have a session on that I'm a part of, and I'll actually be presenting part of, and that is on Richard Wright, H.L. Mencken, and the Jim Crow South. I wish I weren't in the land of cotton. And there you can see Richard Wright, the writer, his comment about H.L. Mencken, the journalist who attacked almost so many things in American culture in the 1920s using words as weapons. And he said, when he encountered Mencken for the first time, I read on, and what amazed me was not what he said, but how on earth anybody had the courage to say it. So I hope you can join us next week for that. But for today, we have Taylor Anderson in house, and she's going to conduct a workshop / talk, and then we'll take some questions and answers as we need to. I should also say at this point, if you want to ask a question at any time, you can type that question in the chat, and the chat box is at the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Also, too, I don't know if yours looks this way, but there may be an exclamation point next to your name, and you can simply click on that, and that also allows you to chat. So type your questions in the chat as necessary, and of course, we'll have Q&A after this is all over. So for today, T.C. Anderson, or Taylor Anderson, is a Houston-based writer and artist with work published in Sunday Mornings at the River, Capsule Stories, Pages Penned in Pandemic, a Collective, The Raven Review, and more. Her poetry collection, which we're celebrating today, The Forest, was published in 2021, serves as the basis of the inspirational basis of an art installation with artist Mari Omori, premiering in 2022. And Taylor, you can tell us a little bit more about that in a while. Her artistic and collaborative work has been shown in several local art galleries here in Houston, as well as internationally. Anderson holds a Bachelor of Arts in Graphic Design and Media Arts from Southern New Hampshire University, and she currently works as graphic designer for Lone Star College-Kingwood. And the link you clicked on today to get into this workshop is one that Taylor creates for all of us at the college. So, and she creates or helps create the flyers along with Pam Clark, who's in attendance today. If you look below the description there, you'll see her website, which you can go to, thetcanderson.com. And to the right of her description, her bio, is her collection of poems called The Forest. And so without any further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Taylor. And thank you for coming today, Taylor. And let me make you the presenter real quickly. Everybody give a round of applause. And you should be the presenter at this point.
Okay, let me just get everything arranged here. Make sure I have it on the right window. Okay, screen one, there we go. And I believe, I hope people can see my screen now. So thank you so much to John for giving me this opportunity to talk about my work. This has been kind of a fulfillment of a dream of mine for a long time, to be able to just publish a book. It's something I've dreamed about doing since I was a kid. So to not only see it come to fruition this year, after much trial and tribulation and the crazy few years that we've had, not to mention have it come to fruition in so many different unexpected ways, with Mari Omori, who I'm not sure if she's in attendance right now, but she's been a huge artistic collaborator and influence on this project, which I'm going to be talking about more in this presentation. It's been an honor to be able to do this. And oh, Mari said she's here.
Yeah.
So she's been a huge influence, and I'm going to talk about more about our collaboration together through this, and also just the history of this project as a whole. So I hope it's interesting to you guys to see how this came to fruition and what we have planned in the future. So this is kind of a longer version of what John said. This is my longer biography. I have been published outside of my work at Lone Star College-Kingwood. I've been published in several publications, including the ones John named. And I have a couple other publications actually lined up for future works. This is all stuff that I kind of do on the side away from my day job. It's a kind of a passion of mine, writing and making art as well. On the side, I'm also a multimedia artist, and one of my biggest collaborators has been Mari Omori. We've worked together a lot on video. So a lot of collaborative video work has shown in Houston galleries for her shows. So I've been extremely honored to be a part of her works in that regard. I recently have also had some self-portrait photography. Actually, you can see some of it in the background here, that has been exhibited just recently at Lawndale Art Center's Big Show, and also internationally in Singapore and Bangalore. But our current project with Mari is the manifestation of the forest, which I'm going to get into the history of it a little bit more. But the forest is not just a poetry collection. It is actually a combination between the literal and the visual. It actually started out as the art exhibition that me and Mari are planning first before it became a poetry book. So I'm going to be going a little bit into that. And we've actually had part of it already exhibited at Houston Community College early last year, and as well as Lone Star College Fine Art Gallery. I am a graphic designer. I've won a couple awards for my work at Lone Star College-Kingwood, and I just recently graduated with my bachelor's in graphic design. So I've been very happy about that and to have that out of the way. Now, for the making of the forest, I kind of gave myself bullet points here because I have written since I was young. Since I was a kid, I've always had certain fascinations with like favorite TV shows and stuff, and that's always manifested in stuff that has inspired me, and I always loved writing. It started out mainly as kind of fiction, short stories, and that kind of thing. But eventually went into poetry in my mid to late teens. I actually even won an award for one of my poems at the first college that I attended in Southwest Texas. But as it sometimes happens, once I got into college, I was a full-time student, and I have a few degrees actually from Lone Star College. And I was a full-time student for a lot of the time, as well as working at the college. And those kind of dreams got pushed aside a little bit to where I didn't have time. I would occasionally have creative spurts here and there, but I didn't have the time to really dedicate to it that I would wanted to. Fast forward to about 2018, and Instagram was all the rage. So I decided to make an account. Didn't quite know what I was doing with it. I shuffled between posting art, maybe photography, that kind of thing. I had different creative pursuits, but I didn't really focus in too much on the platform until about late 2019. And I started seeing Instagram's a very visual platform, but there's actually a very blossoming poetry community on it that, despite it being a visual platform, it is a very literary platform as well. So I started diving deep into that and started making connections and using some of my past poetry, one of which I actually have on the screen, called micro poetry. Started posting a little bit of that on the account just to share, kind of become part of the community and start sharing and engaging. So I started diving deep into that about late 2019. And because of that, I really started getting inspired to write again. And that started manifesting in poems again, which was a medium I had not dived into in a long time, but it really started to inspire me. At the same time, I had this random spurt at work. During my day job, a lot of times I work in a print shop. That's where my office is in a print shop. And oftentimes we would have to, print out invitations and stuff like that. And I would have to trim them because, they're on 8.5 by 11 pages. You have to trim them in half, make sure the edges are nice and neat. And one day when I was doing this, I actually we're trimming event invites for the art gallery. And I ended up with these paper slips, just like this, just sized just like this. And I was like, I could do something with those. I don't know what yet, but I could do something with those. And I'd always made a habit of having like some sort of notebook or something to that effect around where I could write down like random poetic phrases and verses. And I thought, what if I write these verses on like these slips and just like throw them in a bowl or in a hat or something, shuffle them around and see what comes out. So I had this idea, and so I was like, I'm gonna go buy some paper. I'm gonna go trim up these slips, and I'll see what comes out of it. This ended up creating the poetry writing method that I used to write the book, and it all stemmed from this. So I dived heavily into this poetry writing method, and I ended up with a bunch of poems that came out of it. And I saved all those slips back. So I was like, I could do something with this. I don't know what yet, but I could do something with this. And after a while, I had this large bag of slips. And I'm like, maybe I can talk with somebody, maybe have a different idea about what to do with these. The first person I thought of who I was working with at the time was LSC-Kingwood art professor Mari Omori. So I went down, her classroom is right down the hall from my office. So I'm like, I gotta go and let me go and talk to her. Maybe she has some idea of what to do. So I told her about it, and immediately she and I were batting around ideas, talking about this, envisioning this like forest of papers crafted from these paper slips, this whole world essentially that were crafted from these paper slips, this intersection between the literary and the visual in this art exhibition. And it just blossomed from there. We started writing down these ideas, coming up with different solutions to the ideas that we had. And that's where the forest started. It actually started out first as a form of art. So as it developed, we ended up actually manifesting into the first, which I'll go to in a minute, the first iteration of the forest, which is the branches, which we had exhibited at Houston Community College last year. And that was kind of the first start of it. And when we were doing this, I still had all these poems saved back. And I was sharing like one occasional one here and there on Instagram. And people were like, hey, this is really neat. I really like this. And I was like, well, what if I turn this into like a collection or something that could go with the art exhibition? So that manifested into the branches. And these are actually the work in progress photos when me and Mari were working on it. Different experiments and ideas of what it would look like. And they're basically the paper slips pinned to kind of a fish-like netting, fishing net. And we were experimenting with these with different kind of pins and stuff and how it would look. And it eventually culminated into what was exhibited at Houston Community College as well as Lone Star College Fine Art Gallery, which we ended up using a tea-stained mosquito netting and pinning these in formations that kind of looked like trees. And it was actually Mari's idea to have kind of a center focal point with kind of a crochet ring at the center. And it was, again, approximately 28 28 feet by 48 feet. And it was a huge public art installation at Houston Community College. We had a connection with somebody there that was looking for some art, and they gave us the opportunity to exhibit this. And this was the start of the building of the art exhibit that is the forest. And we were just full force going in and just creating so many things, so many ideas, and it blossomed into this first part. And we absolutely loved how it turned out. We were like, this opens the door to so many more things. And then something we're all familiar with, the pandemic hit. And it kind of put a stop to a lot of our plans because we weren't seeing each other in person anymore, and there was a lot of things that were closing. And actually, Mari commented, said many of the art students at HCC saw this work. So, and that's something I didn't know. So that's really awesome. So, and this is actually some other photos to kind of give more of a broad spectrum idea of what it looks like. Because the pandemic hit, a lot of our efforts stopped, and we were just kind of in a wait and see pattern about what we could do, because this is something that is to be experienced in person. So in the meantime of that, I ended up going full force into the book. And it started manifesting around February, when right after we had kind of installed the branches at HCC, I started kind of culminating all these poems together, going through editing, serious editing, and narrowing it down. The poems in the book are arranged in a three-act structure: the branches, the forest, and the roots. And after I pretty much dedicated the entire summer of 2020, because we were mostly work at home. I was occasionally going back to the campus because we had like emergency measures and signage and stuff that we needed to put in place. But I was mostly work at home for that point, which most of us were. During that time, I was going full force into it, and I had also started going after my bachelor's degree full time online. So I was busy over that summer. But once I got to a good place in the book, in August, I actually began working with a hybrid publisher, which a hybrid publisher is kind of an intersection between a traditional publisher and self-publishing, to where you upfront the cost, and in turn, the publisher doesn't keep the rights to the book or any of the royalties. You keep all of that, but they will help you design it, market it, get it out there. So I started working with Riza Press on designing the collection, which I narrowed down and ended up culminating into the 42-page collection or chapbook that became The Forest. And again, I was studying full-time at the same time, and that was Southern New Hampshire has a very unique structure where you do 2 classes in 8-week periods. So it was very intense starting out. But I fully dedicated my time to that, as well as working. And after a couple of different delays due to life and a couple of other things, the book was eventually published the following April, on April 28th, 2021. And now, as things are opening up, things are becoming safer to work with, me and Mari have, over time, been working in our own efforts to continue work on the full exhibit of The Forest. And over the time that I was also working on the book, I was actually working on the piece that's pictured here called The Roots, which is I think it's a 36 by 48 canvas, if I recall. It's very, very large canvas, and it's made up of negative space roots with a lot of those pin strips, those paper slips pasted onto the canvas. And a lot of these were used in other poems as well as poems in the book. And so this was one of the pieces I was working on. That one took about 3 months to make. And then at the same time, Mari was working on pieces of her own to help culminate into this full exhibit. And as it says here, the Forest exhibition intends to merge the intimate experience of reading and writing with something that's a lot more open. It's a very, when you go into an art gallery and view something, it's a very open experience. Other people can share that experience with you. They can talk with you. It's something that you can share with other people. But when you're reading a book or writing something. That's very introverted. That is very personal experience. And this exhibit aims to combine those two and merge them into something that's very immersive and unique. We just found out, actually, that the full exhibition that we are working on is actually going to premiere mid to late 2022 in the local area. We don't have full details yet, but we're going to release them as soon as we have them. So we're very excited to learn that it's actually going to be showing in a gallery finally after all this time on all this work that we've put in. We're super excited to finally have it manifest. Each piece in the exhibit is named after an act or poem in the book, such as The Branches, which was the first one, The Roots. There's another piece called Fixed in Place, and then there's also a piece that Mari's working on called Circles, and all of these cumulatively be known as The Forest. And it will be comprised of several pieces, including installation works, interactive elements. We're hoping to get basically the community involved where they can actually add their own phrases and kind of add to the story of the forest. We're hoping if we can have this exhibit go to many different locations, that those elements can change and evolve, and that we can eventually even include and evolve the exhibit based on the community participation and the stories that are added by the community. In terms of what I'm doing on the side, this exhibit and the book and the concept of the forest as a whole, I hope to be integrating into a world for a novel series that I am currently in very early development on. The concept of it, how do I put it? The concept of it is much bigger than just the art exhibit and the book. I want it to kind of expand out into basically a whole new world by itself. But there's a lot of details in the book and actually in pieces like The Roots that contribute to the expansion of that world and that will make sense as that series develops. And so I'm really looking forward to developing that and continuing the life of the forest well beyond, after it exhibits and after, publication and all that. And as I said, the expansion of the forest also, we wish for it to continue on with the community. And we hope that will create possibilities for future expansion of the art exhibit, maybe into different mixed media works involving the community participation and their contributions, maybe even into like anthologies that the community themselves have written that we just culminate and something that can be offered at like the exhibits, that kind of thing. A little bit ways down the road, but we do hope to involve the community in that way and to expand on it. So actually, that's pretty much my presentation in that regard. That is the full history of the book. So this would go into actually the workshop presentation. So if anybody has any questions so far, then I can take them. And let me see, I need to pull up where the chat is. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's see.
Can you see the questions? I can read them out.
Let me see. I can see the chat, but I cannot see the Q&A.
Okay. Well, the chat, they usually put them in the chat. The first question is there, from Heather, is there a reason for the double curtain on the one part of the branches installation?
Let me see. Let me go back so I have a point of reference. So do you mean the branches itself is comprised of actual multiple layers of the mosquito netting. This is not one large strip of mosquito netting. So really it's more just kind of a patchwork culmination of different nettings. So in that sense, that was more just us trying to find a solution. But the biggest thing actually is in terms of such as this area to where it's actually multiple draped, you can actually see that it is layered to where there's multiple layers of it. And that was actually intentional. We wanted to create something that we felt you would have to dive more into to start seeing kind of more of the story, and so you would have to get close and personal with, and that it is comprised of multiple layers, much like a tree is, and in terms of how they have like their age rings and stuff, that it is comprised of multiple layers. So that effect was actually intentional to create that.
Then she said you answered her question, but she also had another one. She said, are the phrase slips the ones you originally wrote, or did you work some of them to fit with the piece or purpose or something of that nature?
So a lot of these actually were as they were written in the book, they were included in it. There was actually quite a few of the slips that weren't used in poetry that was used in the book, but they were used in other pieces of poetry that I've either had published or I'm kind of keeping to the side. So not all of these were actually used in the book. But there are certain ones that I did kind of gear a certain way or written a specific way. Typically, if I changed the wording of one of the phrases or something that was on the slip, it was actually in the book itself to help tell the story of the poem better. So that's more of where the alterations were for the phrases, and not so much in terms of the art exhibition. But again, there's a lot of the phrases in the art, in every art piece, that weren't actually present in the book itself. The book is actually a small sampling of the paper slips that were used.
Taylor, one of the audience members said that he likes to write poetry, but he's found himself stifled with doing that lately. And so I'm wondering, because a good portion of what you've talked about here is your creative process, and how do you, when I assume you have some non-creative periods.
Of course.
And so how do you work through that? How do you push through those non-creative periods, or when you're stifled? Does Instagram help? Does immersion in other people's work help? Could you talk to that a little bit?
So I do find that reading will often help. I get my inspiration from multiple different sources. I love watching television shows. I love playing video games. And right now, one of the video games that I'm playing is a huge inspiration. Has had me writing poems and short stories and stuff because it's been such a huge influence on me. But I do go through those periods a lot, and I find that typically that is my mind's way of saying it needs a rest. So typically I give it its time. I don't feel like it's a block that I need to force myself through. I feel like it's my mind's way of saying, you need to rest. You need to rest your creative juices. You don't always need to be going 100% all the time. Give yourself some time, and it eventually will come and it'll return. And it always does. Sometimes it'll last a month, and I'm sitting there going, I haven't written anything in months. What's going on? And finally something will spark, something will inspire me, and I'll write something down, and then it starts coming out in full force. I know a lot of people will say, write every day and just find a way, even if it's horrible, go ahead and continue writing. I can't force myself through a writer's block that way. It doesn't work for me personally. I've tried it before. It doesn't work. Everybody's different in that regard. For some people that probably does work. Just continuing that motion and that habit of writing will help eventually instigate something. For me personally, it doesn't work. You have to kind of figure out what works best for you. You can always try different things. Go and read other people's works. That is one thing I absolutely make sure to do, is continue reading other people's works. Instagram is a huge place for it, actually. A lot of different, very talented people on there that you could follow and talk to and communicate with, which is what I really love about the community. It's you don't feel like you're blocked by an agent or something like that, like you would with published authors. You get to talk to the creators directly and engage with them, and they can engage with you. And I found a lot of authors and stuff, authors that they'll send their books to me and be like, "Hey, thanks so much for your support and everything on Instagram. Love it." And we'll share each other's works, and it's always such a great time. It's a very welcoming community, and I absolutely love it for that reason. And I always make sure, even during the dry periods, that I am reading their works and getting inspired by their works and everything like that. Even if I can't output something myself at that time, I'm always reading. And I always also make a habit to, try to read occasional poetry books and stuff like that and get familiar with more traditional authors and classic poetry and in different forms that I typically wouldn't write in. I started out when I was younger thinking that rhyming poetry was the only poetry. And I was very much inspired by music, and I still am, in terms of rhyming lyrics and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I got my start in poetry. But once I've actually found the poetry community on Instagram, I started realizing you can go free verse and you can do prose poetry. There's so many different variations of poetry. And that helped me branch out, because sometimes I can't rhyme anything and the rhyme is not there. So once I realized that poetry is very flexible and broad spectrum in that regard, that helped me out a lot. But I also tend to sometimes go back to poets that do the rhyming structure, so I can get inspired there, get out of my comfort zone. So yeah, in short, I would definitely continue to read during that time. But if you need to, give yourself that time. It could be just your brain's way of saying, hey, I need to step away from this for a while. And when inspiration strikes, it will. So yeah, give yourself that time.
Well, I think for now we don't have any more questions. So if you want to head into the workshop aspect of the hour, go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Audience members, don't hesitate to put questions in the chat box.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So go ahead.
So for this workshop, if whatever you guys prefer to write on, if you have a notebook and pen handy, if you prefer to write on a computer, whatever is handy, if you have a napkin nearby, that'll work too. I want this to be very freeform, and whatever it is that you want it to be. This does not have to be poetry. This can be a short story. This can be a love letter. This could be an angry memo to your boss. Whatever it is you would like to do, whatever comes out, let it come out. But what I'm going to do to help instigate this is I have a bowl here of phrases, all taken from my book. And I'm going to draw phrases randomly. There'll be 4 in total. And for each line, I'm going to state the line. I'll give you 5 minutes with that line. You can do with it whatever you like. You do not have to stick with it word for word. You can adapt it to whatever it is that you want to use. Just whatever is inspired by that line, go ahead and start writing. And this does not have to be one full piece. If you guys want to decide to do separate pieces, if you guys want to combine a few together, whatever it is you want to do, just let that imagination flow with whatever the phrase says. Whatever it inspires for you to do it and write it down. And at the end of this, after all these 4 phrases, it'll last about 20 minutes. And I'll be writing with you guys. I'll share what I have. And if you guys want to share what it is that you guys wrote, then John can add you as a panelist to it, and you can share with everyone else. You are under no obligation to do so, by the way. If you would like to keep it to yourself, that is perfectly fine too. So
I can put you on camera, or if you want to share it verbally, I think I know how to allow you to at least just share it verbally without your camera being on. At least I hope that's right.
Yeah. So we'll figure something out if you so wish to share. But otherwise, just have fun with this. Whatever comes out, just let your mind flow. All right. So I'm going to pull out my notebook as well so that I am ready to write. And I will be pulling up a timer here in just a second. Let me go to the page. There we go. And let me get out of full screen here. So I've got a timer already pulled up, and let's pull the first phrase. Let's see what we got. All of these lines were taken from my book, and I wrote all these slips down this morning, and I was kind of blown away about some of these lines, because I had forgotten about some of the stuff that I had written in the book. It had been a while since I'd read through it, so it was quite interesting. So the first phrase is, until next we wake. So use that phrase however it is you wish to adapt it and use it until next we wake.
Wake,
Wake.
not wait.
Yeah,
Wake.
wake. So next we wake. Yeah.
Sorry about that,
There
folks.
we go. And I will start the timer and use it however you wish to use it.
Okay. I'm going to walk around a bit because I think better when I walk around. I will be back shortly.
Sounds good. All right, we have about 2.5 minutes left.
Wait. Man, I'm feeling pressure. Feel like I got something here, but
We have 30 seconds left. All right. So let me draw the next one here.
Oh man, no, don't even get to share yet.
Now we're gonna share at the end.
All right, okay, killing me.
You know, you can also use this next one in the same piece. You can also use it as a way to continue to
Okay.
expand on what you're writing.
Got to get another. All right.
All right, so the next one is You've Found Me in Shades of Gray.
All right. You found me. All right.
All right, you got that?
I'm typing it in.
Thank you. And also, if you want to continue expanding on any of the previous prompts, if you're kind of done, you have some time, feel free to do so. And I am starting the clock now. Ooh, we already have audience submissions. How exciting. I can't wait to start reading those at the end.
Yep.
All right, we have 2.5 minutes left. All right, 30 seconds left. All right, so let me draw a third one. Let's see. There we go. Twisting the rose petals. Twisting the rose petals. That is your next prompt.
We have another audience.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I'm going to be reading through all of these at the end. I am so excited to read all these. Okay, so I'm going to start the timer.
What was that again?
Twisting the rose petals. There we go.
By the way, for the audience, when it says from John Barr, those are audience member contributions, not mine. So I don't want to plagiarize someone else's work here. Just cutting and pasting.
All right, we have 2 minutes left. All right. One final prompt. Let's see what we've got. Only the trees will know. Only the trees will know. That's actually the title of one of the poems from my book. All right, and I will start the timer. One last 5 minutes. All right, 2.5 minutes left.
1 minute, but no pressure, anybody. Steve Davis, I'll expect something that we can set to music by the time we get done reading your stuff.
I would absolutely love that.
Oh, there's Angie's. We put that one up.
All right. So I'll share one of mine, but we've got so many entries, I really want to prioritize sharing everybody else's. So if everybody would just like to, post theirs in chat and I can read it, that's also perfectly fine. However it is you guys want to do it. I'm so excited to see that people are actually enjoying doing this. So, so for the one that, for the first one, until next we wake, I wrote, until next we wake from the self-made prison, our bodies ready for something other than pain and heartbreak, and open to the stars that fall on us, I will love you. Until next we wake to the moon's cratered blessings, as we find peace in the shadows of the galaxy, and hide away from the reapers of our souls, I will love you. And I'm probably going to expand that further. I ran out of time on that, but I think I want to expand that into a few more paragraphs and versions of that too. So that's the kind of the thing that I did. I actually did each one as a separate piece for each prompt, just because I couldn't find a way to tie them together, but I had different inspirations for each one. So
I wrote on mine, Taylor. I kind of tried to do like each stanza was going to be kind of like waking up in the middle of the day. So until next we wake, our anxieties torment us. Upon the day's break, our hopes inspire us. Now, then I went on and I tried, so this theme of going through the day.
right.
In other words, so now, and so when you said you found me in shades of gray, then I go on from there.
That's
So,
awesome. That's awesome.
So anyway, now I don't know about awesome, but thank you.
Well, I mean, and that's the idea is you kind of interpret it your own way, and
right.
whatever it is that you visualize and see, just kind of go with it and use it as a launching pad. And that was the whole aim of the workshop, is just use it as a launching pad and see what comes out of it. Do you post these phrases from somewhere? This is from Heather. Do you post these phrases somewhere? Because I don't think that I could come up with phrases on my own, but this is super fun and I'd love to do it on a regular basis. I do not post them somewhere, but I would absolutely be open to doing workshops like this. And I think it would be kind of interesting to have a place where I could regularly post these when I come up with them. So you might have given me an idea there. I do regularly post on my Instagram. I'm at the TC Anderson. And a lot of the poems from there are formulated in the same way. I have also posted a couple of these kind of prompts on my Instagram as well. So if that's something you'd be interested in, that's something I could potentially create, or maybe even create on my website. But I would absolutely be open to doing like little prompt inspirational workshops like these with this kind of method too.
Taylor, here's one from a student of mine. Until next we wait for the ringing bells and the bright lights, the laughter and warmth swept away in the chilly snow. Until next we wait for warmth.
Love that.
You found me in shades of gray when I melted into a puddle of my own despair, fighting the nights and trying to take in air. Lonely and afraid, but for a better day, I must wait.
Oh, I love that. These are beautiful.
Twisting the rose petals, she wrung the stems of the flowers like a tattered cloth with desperation, frozen in place as she watched her lover walk away, knowing they would not return tomorrow. Wow. And then only the trees will know if you share your secrets. The wind will mischievously carry your voice away, but the trees will know and guard your secrets and whispered worries.
Oh, those are beautiful. Those are absolutely beautiful.
Right.
I'm so glad that people are finding inspiration in these. This is what I was hoping for.
There's Steve Davis. Until next we wake, shake me if I scream in my sleep. Yeah.
That does sound like a song lyric.
Yeah,
I can hear that in a
exactly.
song.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I went and copied the poems over to a notepad so I could read these and kind of keep them because I'm so happy that people found inspiration in this.
Be sure to follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Like this video, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button to be notified about our latest content.